Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks for sticking around for the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Chris Sadamski in a matter of moments over in the studio. We can give us a call tonight. 412-575-2600 is the number, and we definitely have a lot to talk about, starting with the Steelers on this day. Very rarely do you see moves like this coming this early on, Chris, but they've already released 4 veteran free agents, freed up some cap space. They got good news that the cap space went up $30 million this year to $255, which is a record, which is all good news for the Steelers because they were over the cap. Now they find themselves about $10 million under after releasing Mason Cole today. Look, I get why people wanted him released. I get that they wanted to save money, but I really like Mason Cole, and I think he was a good teammate in that locker room. He always faced the music. He was a great guy. Yeah, he had his snapping issues, and I still think you address center, but I think he would have been a good guy to learn behind.
Yeah, I'm surprised, especially by the timing of it coming. This is something that under Kevin Colbert they didn't do as often. Like you said, 4 veterans now have been released here before the end of February, and it was pretty rare. Usually the Steelers generally would wait, even if they knew they were going to cut somebody, until that week whenever free agency begins, right before it begins or right after it begins that new league year. And they had to get cap compliant by the start of the new league year there, that second week of March. But Mason Cole, everybody knew Tukes for. Mitch Trubisky really didn't have a role anymore. The punter's the punter. You cut those guys. But Mason Cole was a 2-year starter. He played every game. Yes, I get it. He was sort of a target of fan angst, and rightfully so to a point when he was a lot of his shotgun snaps this year, whatever was going on with that, but he was adequate. And they needed an upgrade probably. That's the way the organization looked at it. But without an obvious replacement already in hand, it is sort of an odd move to do this now and kind of paints themselves into a corner because you figure they want to wait for the draft, but free agency's before the draft, right? What if the draft doesn't fall your way and you get one of those guys in the first couple rounds, and then all of a sudden you're really in a tight spot? So they pretty much have to sign somebody of at least some pedigree to be able to play center here during free agency.
Chris, they also need an upgrade at the third wide receiver spot. Yeah. And you would have saved a little more money by cutting Allen Robinson.
Yeah, that has to happen at some point. There's no way he's coming back at the salary he's on. So that's almost the most surprising thing, because I thought of everybody almost on the roster, maybe except for Tukes because you knew he was gone. And I love Allen Robinson too. He's a Penn State guy. I love Allen Robinson, but no, Allen Robinson's a great guy in the locker room too. And I guess I could see a path where he's back, and maybe that's it. Maybe they're trying to work with him and his agent and say, hey, we'll bring him back for the minimum salary or a low salary, and maybe that's why. But because there's no way his contract as stands will be back this year. And you're right. But overall, they probably do. They could use an upgrade there at number 3 receiver.
So what does this mean? I mean, obviously they're not going to go after a center out in free agency. At least I don't think they would. Are they going to? They're going to target a center probably the first or second day of the draft, right? They have to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I don't know, unless I guess they figure that my Herbig brothers Nate Herbig, not Nick Herbig. If Nate Herbig is that insurance policy in case, because you're really, the draft, you have to have it fall your way. You're picking 20th, and then you're picking whatever it is, around 50 or so. Even if you have somebody you're targeting, you never know. Somebody might jump you and take them in front of you, and then you're kind of stuck. If you wait to the second round, maybe there's somebody who fell to you at a different position that you can't pass up in the first round. So you can't just plan on the draft to fill a hole. And you remember Terrell Edmonds, they did that with safety. They didn't have a safety. In free agency, they didn't really address safety, and they had to take a safety in the first round. Terrell Edmonds was a fine, decent enough starter, but he wasn't worth a first-round pick when they took him 30th overall in 2018. So I'm sure they're going to have a contingency plan. And it just makes you wonder. But you look at the free agent market at at center, there's not like a guy who really is somebody who you really think is this huge upgrade that it's going to be that they're going to sign. So I would think draft, yeah, but they got to sign somebody just in case the draft doesn't work the way they need it to.
Is James Daniels a possibility? I mean, or then you're moving too many pieces on the offensive line.
Yeah, he's the point. He's center capable, as Mike Tomlin would say, and I guess if it comes down to that, if you get to the point where they need it, he can do it. He has done it in the past to a point at the NFL level. It's been a while now. He's almost the point where his veteran status is enough where it's like, hey, do you move somebody like that? And Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you don't have a contingency plan, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt here, right? I mean, I don't want to criticize them for not having a plan when we don't know they don't have a plan, but it's also, there's unknowns here. You can have the best plan in the world, but maybe an agent or a player doesn't sign somewhere for less money, or a draft doesn't fall your way. But again, it's February 23rd here. We're not going to worry about holes not being filled yet. That's what the free agency and the draft are for.
All right, I have a few more questions, and we have a ton of phone calls right now about the Steelers. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our GMC Tweet of the Night from Pitt Wrestling. Winner at 141 right there. He majors in Virginia's Kyron Butler. So good news. 100 wins here. Career victory 100 for Cole. Good job, Cole Matthews. All right, let's get out the phone lines. We got Bill out in Pittsburgh. How you doing, Bill?
Hi, guys. How are you? Hey, I just wanted to know, how do we I think we're going to get Justin Fields. I think it's going to happen. The other thing I wanted to ask you, how did the Kansas City Chiefs steal that punter from us? They went in there and signed that guy. I mean, how'd that happen?
Hey, were the Steelers even in on that punter?
I mean, I'm sure he didn't get signed, and I'm sure the Steelers could have signed him. I don't know if it was much in on. It wasn't like, I don't think there was necessarily a bidding war or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I didn't even hear that the Steelers would be interested in him, so I don't know what the Steelers are going to do at punter. I'm sure they're going to figure it out. There's a ton out there. We also know that name slips me, but he was out in Buffalo for who was the guy that they brought back at the end of the year?
Brad Wing.
Brad Wing was out in Buffalo, so maybe he's the guy you can bring back, and they feel like they're comfortable with him for another year. Let's go to Tom out in Greensburg. How you doing, Tom? Tom, you there?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, on the Mason Cole thing, nobody could be shocked. The guy was below the line, and mostly by below the line, I mean, like his snaps were below the knee way too many times at terrible times.
Hey, Tom, look, go ahead, keep going.
Then on Justin Fields, what's a good scenario that happens there? If you bring him in, and then he has a good year, you can't afford to sign him because he's going to want huge money again. And if he has a bad year, you just wait your pick. I think you're better off going to the draft route with.
Well, they're not going to draft Tom. They're not going to draft a quarterback in the first, second, or even third round. I think I'd put money on that one. But the Justin Fields thing, you'd pick up his option. You'd have to pay him what, $20 to $25 million next year, and you could work out a long-term deal. See, here's the thing: if you get a franchise quarterback, you got to pay him, Chris. You have to pay him.
See, here's why the Fields thing to me doesn't make as much sense, because the rationale behind, or a big part of the rationale behind riding with Kenny Pickett this season is the company line from the Steelers. And it makes sense to the point that you have this high pedigree quarterback who is still on a very low salary with no long-term commitment. This is Pickett's last season before his fifth option decision comes due. So if you have that and you're not paying quarterbacks very much on your roster, you can build a better roster around him. You give him one last shot. There's not much in future investment. There's a sunk cost of the draft pick, of course, they use on Kenny Pickett. So to me, to trade for a Justin Fields, whenever that's your rationale behind keeping Kenny Pickett, then you have to kind of commit to Justin Fields immediately by picking up next year, the 2025 fifth-year option already. Or you don't, and then all of a sudden if he does have a good year, then you're in the position where you do have to give him the long-term extension then. So financially, if they've decided to stick with Kenny Pickett, it doesn't, to me, and this is just my opinion, it doesn't make sense to go with to add a Justin Fields to that whenever you can't play them both, of course. And it's like if you have to make a decision on one, make a decision on the other. If you're going to go full veteran route, full proven guy route, that's one thing, and make Kenny Pickett a backup. But it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make too much sense if you're going to if Kenny Pickett's still supposedly your franchise guy, to bring in a guy like Justin Fields. To me.
Well, those two scenarios, you're not picking up Kenny Pickett's fifth-year option if he's a backup. Or if they bring in someone like a Justin Fields. I mean, it's basically he's here for another year, and that's going to be it, or another 2 years, or whatever it is. You won't pick up his fifth-year option. I don't mind it because your salary at the quarterback position will still be low. You'll still be able to add guys this year, even if Justin Fields is your guy. You're pushing that money forward another year.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to how very publicly so far, from the Steelers have said publicly, they're very much behind Kenny Pickett to be in a competition.
But don't they have to do that, Chris? I mean, they got to do that, right?
You're right. And it very well could be just, you're right. They don't have any choice but to say that. If they didn't say that, then all of a sudden, if he's not your guy or whatever it might be. But if something falls in their lap, right, whatever it might be, I mean, what could we say? If Kirk Cousins decided he thinks the Steelers can win a Super Bowl here, and he's like, I made a lot of money in my career. I'll come to Pittsburgh for a veteran minimum. Then hey, you got to take him, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, so I get all that. So it is a fascinating conundrum, really, that they're in. And I could see why. To me, though, it's just like either you're bringing a more established veteran, somebody who is. I guess it also falls where you fall on Justin Fields. It sounds like you're a lot more sold on Justin Fields being a franchise long-term quarterback. I think some people still have questions.
I have questions, but here's why I'm on that side, because Mike Tomlin was enamored with him. I know the Steelers really liked him, so that makes me think that they might take a shot. He didn't really have a team. I mean, yeah, he had a ton of fumbles, but he has better statistics. And he has more of an upside than a Kenny Pickett. And if you can bring him in for, what you can this year, and then you have to pay him next year and the years after, but it's not a guarantee either. But I think it's a better option at an upside of a franchise quarterback than anything you're going to do. You're not even going to get a guy at 20 in the draft, right? And if you wait in the third round or whatever and draft, who knows is going to be available then. You're going to get a backup that's a project. So you're still riding with Kenny Pickett. Quarterbacks aren't available all the time. So you take a chance on him for a third rounder. If maybe you can't get him for a third rounder, but hey, what do you got to lose?
Yeah, the acquisition cost, that doesn't bother me. But it's more like you have to make a big decision on the contract that quickly. And if you're going to have a competition this year, unless you say he is the starter and you either trade Kenny Pickett or if he's not your starter, to me, if he's going to compete for the job, how can you sign up for $25 million next year?
You can't bring him in and compete for the job. Let's go out to Rocco Penn Trafford. How you doing, Rocco?
Oh, I was thinking, what are your thoughts on Justin Fields, or like a young quarterback, or do you go for a younger, like a more long-term veteran quarterback, like Ryan Tannehill or Russell Wilson?
Hey, thanks a lot, Rocco. Good call. I mean, I have a feeling the old Steelers, I'm still in that kind of mindset. And this is a new regime here now, but I still feel like they're going to go after Ryan Tannehill. But Justin Fields makes sense in this Arthur Smith-type offense. That's another reason why I like him. And then maybe you're set at your franchise quarterback. The Steelers like to take gambles on guys like this that potentially have some upside. We saw it before. That's why I'm kind of thinking that there is a chance. I'm not saying it's a done deal. I'm saying there's probably like a 35% chance, which is more than I think that you would expect from this team.
Well, right now there's only one quarterback, right? They need to add two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Mason Rudolph's not under contract.
Probably draft one or get a guy in free agency.
So it seems like the stock most obvious path here is a middle round, whether it be like fourth or fifth round probably type quarterback, and a quarterback like a Ryan Tannehill. We have the connection there. He's going to be the most popular name thrown out there now. Sort of a career backup at this point of his career that also has starting experience or can start, and it is a good secondary option in case Pickett doesn't work out for whatever reason.
But I don't think you're winning. You're going far in the playoffs with any one of those guys right now. I really don't. I mean, that's a position that they're going to have to address, because I'm not sold on Kenny Pickett. And as of right now, there's no way they're picking up his fifth-year option next year.
Yeah, but if you're still trying to find out about Kenny Pickett, and if that's still a stated goal, and there is some logic behind that, and if you don't want to give up on him yet, then you can't really invest a lot of money, and you can't bring in somebody who has to be the starter or intends to be the starter or expects to be the starter.
Yeah, that would be Justin Fields. Hey, we got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls coming up next. Stay right there. Let's go out to Jim out in Peters. Jim, what's up?
Yeah, hey, I heard Starkey say something today, and I agree with him totally. Tomlin screwed this all up with not changing the coordinators. Then when they put in Mason Rudolph looked good. He threw one interception.
Yeah.
But he wasn't drafted, so Tomlin's going to double down by keeping Kenny. And I'm a Pitt guy.
Mason Rudolph was drafted in the third round. I mean, he's a high pedigree guy. Also won the Johnny Unitas Award. Hey, thanks, Jim. Chris, what do you think? Yeah, maybe they screwed it up. We were all thought that they might have let the coordinator go in the offseason last year, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked so much about Matt Canada for last few years. He's been fired now for 3 months. I don't really want to relitigate that now. I think it's obvious maybe that Matt Canada wasn't a good coordinator, but hey, at this point, I'm kind of sick talking about Matt Canada.
Yeah, I'm still not. I still don't know if it's Matt Canada or Kenny Pickett. I mean,
that is the one. See, that's the thing that Kenny Pickett, Kenny Pickett fans can still hang their hats on. He only has one game without Matt Canada, and that is the obvious data point there. I don't know if you saw Patrick Peterson in his podcast was talking about the differences in how Mason Rudolph, the things that we all saw, and that's coming from a 13-year NFL DB, the way Mason Rudolph would stay in the pocket and Kenny Pickett wouldn't, and there are definitely tangible differences between the two. But
I think the longer this goes, Chris, and I don't know if you agree with me, we're running out of time here. I don't think Mason Rudolph's coming back. That could be a torn locker room, and that's something that you don't want.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. That's a good way of putting it. The longer it goes, I feel like it's not going to happen. Happy
All
birthday,
right, thanks
Mom.
a lot, Chris. We'll see you next week. We'll see you on KDK News at 11.